A David beats Goliath moment, upending the political order in New York and the nation.
I cannot believe these numbers right now.
A political unknown, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, stunning 10-term Congressman Joe Crowley of Queens in the 2018 Democratic primary. Crowley, the House Democratic Caucus chair, and a potential heir to Speaker Nancy Pelosi. With his defeat, a leadership role opened, and another New Yorker, Brooklyn Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, stepped up to fill it.
The conversation sounded like, look, we have a one-in-a-lifetime talent among us. Let's realize that. Let's nourish that, and let's push it forward.
An ally, Queens Congressman Gregory Meeks, helped to make the case for Jeffries with fellow Democrats.
Morning, everyone.
Jeffries won the job, and 4 years later, he made history, becoming, earlier this month, the first black person to head a major party in Congress, succeeding Pelosi as the top House Democrat.
The office that I hold right now was Tip O'Neill's office.
Really? This was just a few weeks ago, as Jeffries was settling into his new office off the House floor. Just down the hall, a portrait of George Washington. Jeffries said he doubts the first president could have imagined a Congress this diverse.
He probably also couldn't imagine a man like you in this position.
Probably not.
Jeffries' rise to power is also remarkable for how fast it happened. He entered Congress only 10 years ago. His ascent, part of a generational change in Democratic leadership. That change underscored by Jeffries' public embrace of hip-hop, from rapping at a fundraiser to quoting fellow Brooklyn native Biggie Smalls in the first impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump.
And if you don't know, now you know.
Jeffries says his favorite hip-hop song, Biggie's Sky's the Limit, strikes a chord with him.
It tracks sort of his very humble beginnings as a young person growing up in the 80s or early 90s in a tough part of Brooklyn, never possibly imagining that he would emerge as an international hip-hop superstar. He's very reflective on his journey and also inspirational in suggesting to others that the sky's the limit for them as well.
It sounds like that resonates personally with you.
Well, I think that a lot that Biggie Smalls has done resonates personally with me.
Jeffries was raised by working-class parents in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, as the neighborhood was wrestling with the crack cocaine epidemic.
That was a different time, a different era, a different level of danger that was ever present and helped to shape the psychology of people who were living in New York at the time.
He graduated from Midwood High, SUNY Binghamton, a master's program at Georgetown, and then NYU Law School.
This is the photo in the year that Hakeem was in the clinic, and there he is in the middle.
Professor Randy Hertz was serving as a guest judge in a mock court when he first encountered Jeffries.
He was brilliant. It was striking. He was doing things and thinking about things that experienced lawyers generally don't get, and he was figuring it all out as a second-year student.
Law school classmate Patrick Michelle remembers Jeffries being very passionate when students talked about anything from world events to Supreme Court decisions.
He's sort of futuristic in many ways. He's sort of thinking about what does the world need to look like a year, 5 years, 10 years from now.
Jeffries spoke at his convocation, telling fellow grads that a lot of good needs to be done in the world. He clerked for a federal judge in Manhattan and entered corporate law. Jeffries' time at the firm Paul Weiss briefly overlapping with that of future Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson.
He may well have made partner had he decided to make this firm a career, but he saw his calling elsewhere, and I think the country's better off for it.
That calling was public office, but his first attempts to get elected
"You are out of touch"
would prove less than successful.
And I believe that was a throwback to the old Inside City Hall set, correct me if I'm wrong, about 20 years ago. That was in 2000. Now, tomorrow we will take a look at some of those failed initial attempts at office, including 2 failed bids for the Assembly, and track his rise here in Washington. Errol?
Yeah, Kevin, that was a very contentious race. I remember it well. I live in that district. When you went back to his law school, did the professors seem at all surprised at how fast he went from being their student to being a major lawmaker now?
Well, he liked to stress that he was one of the recipients of an award when he was there that kind of suggested he would be going into public service. And also, he was, as I mentioned in the piece, the convocation speaker. There was a congresswoman that was also there, and my understanding is that the president or whoever was presiding over the ceremony basically said, you're probably going to have another colleague sitting right here next to you, the one that's about to give the student speech. Wouldn't be surprised if he's in Washington soon.
Very interesting. And it's really also striking that almost all of the learning happened right here in New York, meaning he didn't go halfway across the country for law school or college or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's Brooklyn through and through, and as we'll look at a little later in the week, there are some ties that one can draw from his own upbringing in Brooklyn, his work at NYU Law School, and seemingly what he's been focusing a lot of his legislative efforts on, both in Albany and in Washington.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kevin.